Hi, everybody. Welcome to a very special episode of OSINT Curious Webcast and Podcast. I'm your host for this evening, or this day, or morning, or whenever you're listening to it, Micah Hoffman, and I am joined by some of our OSINT Curious project people. Say hi, Kirby. Oh, Kirby, your mic might be muted.
Hi, everyone. I was typing, so okay.
All right, and Ginsburg, 5150, you're here too, aren't you?
I am here, and all my stuff works.
Yes, you're not muted. How about Sector 035? Give me some voice, buddy.
Of course, I'm here. Welcome.
All right. And then our very special guest stars this week are the people from TraceLab. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'll call out your name and then just tell us your name right now, and then we'll get into who you are and what you're doing a little bit later on. So Rob?
Yep. Hi, Rob Sell. Nice to see you all.
Nice meeting you. Adrian?
Hey, Adrian Korn. Good to be here. Thanks for inviting Micah.
Oh, absolutely. And James?
Yep, James here. Nice to be here.
All right. Cool. So just some things right off the bat. We are recording this, so everything that you say can and will be held or published to the internet. We also have some great attendees here, so I'm not going to announce all of them, but thank you all for coming. And as usual with our normal webcasts and podcasts, please go ahead and submit your questions for our wonderful guests here in the chat. And with that said, why don't we go ahead and get started? So which one of you would like to tell us about TraceLab, the organization, and what y'all do?
Yeah, I can go ahead, Micah.
Adrian.
Yeah.
Adrian's the best at doing that. He's so articulate.
Okay.
Sure. So TraceLabs, we are a not-for-profit organization based out of Canada. We do operate actually around the world as well, so not just limited to Canada. And our main focus is really to crowdsource a collection of open source intelligence, otherwise known as OSINT, to help find missing people across the world. So we do this typically through hackathon-style events called CTFs, where we get together a bunch of investigators, hackers, and such to kind of crowdsource OSINT to work on a number of cases that we give to them. So most recently, last week, we ran a global remote event where we had about 200 people from around the world, participating, trying to find OSINT on these people. And we've been doing this for just over a year now. At various InfoSec conferences, academic organizations, not-for-profits, and stuff like that.
Thanks. So that's actually a really neat thing because I come from the world of cyber, and we've been doing Capture the Flags forever. We've been doing them at many events, online, offline. But to do an online OSINT CTF that has real-world implications, that is really cool. Did you all come up with this together, or was it a plan, like a planned decision, or thought out? How did that evolve?
So I think maybe Rob can speak better to how TraceLabs formed with his background. So I'll let you tackle that one, Rob.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. So the idea has come out of search and rescue. When I was working with search and rescue, which has been about 10 years now, we go on various tasks, and some of those include missing persons. And so I get to see, the successful tasks where we find the person, and that's really good. You go home feeling pretty good about that. But then there was a number of tasks where, we don't really, there's a person that's missing and we don't go out looking for them. And I always wondered why are we not looking for those people? And so the more I looked into that, the more I found that there was kind of a really big gap there. And so I had the idea, well, let's see if we can mix technology in with this and help out a little bit. So our teams use a little bit of OSINT right now. First responders are using it more and more because they recognize the value. But at that time, it really wasn't used very much. So we kind of introduced that into it as an idea, prototyped it, and it very quickly started to gain steam and to be something people were interested in, which was great. And then we formed this team, and that's where it really started to take off, right? Where James and Adrian came in and really helped to build the organization. And since then, the growth has just been phenomenal. So it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I've noticed that whenever your events happen, there's a massive swell of really people that are looking to do what we call OSINT for good. Help out, do OSINT in a real world situation, and really have some good outcome. Because doing CTFs is great and all, but if they're canned or staged, you leave feeling like, okay, I learned some things, but here you have real world impact.
Yeah,
That's
exactly,
really cool.
exactly. Yeah.
Ginsberg?
So I had a couple questions. One to ask about like the trace labs and how you guys kind of got that stuff working. Is that all private, or is this through like law enforcement, or how did you come to what sort of search and rescue is your background, or if you can talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So my history there, I'm with Coquitlam Search and Rescue. I've been doing that for about 10 years, and it's in Canada. It's all volunteer, so we're not associated with law enforcement directly. When we get tasked out, we'll usually have law enforcement on site, and they are kind of the chain of command. So they can say, okay, we want to go with you, or we want you to go do this. And we're funded through the government as well. So we don't get paid, but they will cover some of our equipment and things like that. So we're a government volunteer entity. And
we have something similar to that in the States called CERT, which is Community Emergency Response. So we do something similar. We don't do a whole lot with search and rescue, but we will do the like Gen Pop side, to where if there's medical emergencies or if there's other things, we will provide help and security. And there are first responders that do medical stuff as well, but it's never gone to that level. So I didn't know where that came from. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a little different in every country, I think. So a lot of times it's incorporated with the police, and sometimes they're paid individuals.
Yeah.
We have a military SAR as well, which is a little bit different. So they have like really big helicopters, big planes, and it's that's their job. So if something really goes wrong, they get called out. But for the most part, here in Canada, it's all volunteer.
That's awesome. All right.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Question. How did you guys meet?
Oh, geez.
So I think I could probably speak to that one, Rob.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I was going back in history really quick there, trying to details.
I think how we first met was back about over a year ago. I was involved with the local DEF CON Toronto community here in Toronto, where I'm based. And we were actually working with Robert to organize the first missing CTF in the world here in Toronto. And we actually worked with Rob to organize that. I think in 1 week it'll be exactly 1 year. It was on July 28th in 2018. So that's kind of how... Yeah, we should have cake. We should do a whole celebration. 1 year anniversary since the first one. But yeah, that's kind of how I got involved with Trace Labs in the beginning, met Rob, and then it's close to a year later, and we're still going strong here.
What about James?
Yeah, so for me, I participated in the first missing CTF. And Adrian and I went to school together. We go way back many years. So I saw that he was involved with Trace Labs through that first missing CTF, and I'm like, this is really cool. Like, I would love to get more involved with it. He introduced me to Rob, and then the three of us just kind of hit it off, and from there I've been with them ever since. So yeah, I joined right after that first missing CTF.
Cool. Now, I noticed that 2 out of 3 of you have beards, and Ginsberg has a beard. Rob, any plans to grow a beard?
I would really like to grow a beard. I've been thinking about growing a beard, which is funny enough, because like up here, it's just not working for me at all. So
I hear you, man.
It's like the two archetypes here. We've got people who've got full hair and beards, and then we've got Micah, we got Dutch OSINT guy, and we got Rob, who, it's a little bit slicker surface, aerodynamic.
You excluded Kirby.
Kirby, you're like the
we've got the 3 archetypes. Did I say 2 archetypes? I got 3 archetypes. We got women too.
No, it's good. Yeah.
Muting Ginsberg now. So back to Trace Labs. Let me ask you this. You working with law enforcement now, I know that sometimes when organizations work with the government, especially you're working not just with your Canadian local government law enforcement where you can build that relationship, but you just were doing stuff up in Layer 8 up in Rhode Island. You were doing your global CTF. Do you have any challenges working with law enforcement, or are they pretty receptive to you saying, we want to help?
Let me take a stab at that, and I'm sure Adrian and James have input there too, because this is a really interesting question, and there's a complicated answer to it, I think. overall, it's been really positive. I have to say, I kind of expected it to be more difficult, and to sometimes it is. Sometimes we don't get a lot of response back from law enforcement because we're a very new concept for them. And but overall, it's been pretty good. We've had some really good, strong relationships develop with certain agencies, which I think is really cool. And so that's good. I think the worst we've seen is where you just don't get a lot of response, and that's kind of to be expected. We're a new entity. We have to earn their trust, and so we get that, and that's okay. But I don't see any real negativity towards us, which is good. And I think part of that has to do with us being really careful with our scope. There's groups out there which, if you're not careful with your scope, you can get in trouble with law enforcement, right? Because we're branded as hackers, and that, in the media sometimes has a very negative story behind it. And so we want to be very careful as we build this bridge with law enforcement, that we build that image that, okay, you can trust us, we can actually help, we're not going to cause interference, and that we do this properly. And if we do it properly, then all of a sudden we've got this potential to take it further, right? To continue crowdsourcing and to continue bringing information security people in to assist law enforcement to scale. So, and the other part of it is global. So every law enforcement agency, I find, even the districts within a certain country are going to be different. And dealing with that difference, and everything we do is at a global scale. So it's every interaction with a law enforcement group is going to be different, and we have to adjust to that. So it's been really interesting. I think we're introducing a very new model to the world where it's a global approach, and law enforcement typically has been very, very regional. And so that's what makes it cool. That's why it's really exciting. So James, Adrian, I'm sure you guys have. Go ahead.
Yeah, James, yeah. Adrian, and then Kirby, I see, has a question. So Adrian, James, do you guys have anything to add to that? Any experiences?
Yeah. So to further add on to what Rob was saying, I think we've had a lot of success with the local law enforcement to like where we live. So James and I were from the Toronto area. Our first event we ran almost a year ago, we actually partnered with Toronto Police, and they were actually our first supporters. So they kind of came on, they heard about what we were trying to do, and they kind of bought into it. And they actually were there at our first event to help vet a lot of intelligence we were receiving from the contestants. So they were kind of there in person as like our point of contact. If there was anything time sensitive that was discovered, they would be able to follow up on that. And that was almost a year ago we partnered with them. We've done events with them since as well. We did one with actually Pride Toronto back in June, just over a month ago, and they were there again to assist us in person. So we do see a lot of positive law enforcement partnerships coming about. We are always looking to expand internationally as well, and that's where it's a little bit more difficult. But as we, grow in popularity and get our message out in our mission, we find it we're starting to get more reception from them, I would say.
Cool.
Yeah.
James?
I was going to say the same thing that Adrian was going to say. Because we're both from Toronto, we have the very similar experiences. So,
cool. All right. Kirby, you're muted. Kirby? Kirby, you're muted.
Okay, that's to protect the phone number. All right, so I've got 3 questions for you. So the first one is, have you considered, this is from Ray, from the audience, have you considered adding human trafficking cases to your load, since it's kind of related?
Mm-hmm. So first off, hi Ray, thanks for joining the webcast. Ray's actually an active member of Trace Labs, just to get that out there. So in terms of human trafficking cases, the cases we select the missing persons cases that law enforcement has asked for the public's help for. So sometimes the missing people end up being a part of human trafficking. It is possible. Sometimes they're runaway. Sometimes, they're just lost. So they are included in the cases we select. They're just not always like exclusively looked at that way, I would say. I'm not sure if, Rob, you have anything to add on to that.
No, that's exactly right. I think, it's definitely a component of our event. So some people do end up in human trafficking. That's probably one of the worst scenarios. One of the things that we don't do is go after the perpetrators or the criminals. So we're strictly missing persons, and that's really for a number of reasons. But it's if we change that, then all of a sudden we introduce more risk to our contestants, and we're very focused on making sure that that's minimal. So
that's more of the scope aspect of it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're really a zero-touch recon. So our contestants, we don't allow them to contact any of the missing people, their families, or even any suspects involved, just for their own safety and to also not interfere with any active law enforcement investigation. That's one of the main rules.
Active communication, no social engineering, no actual trying to physical location stuff, nothing. Yeah.
Now, Kirby, I know that you have a couple more questions.
I do.
Just real quick before we do that. So one of the first things that I always hear when I say, "Hey, this Trace Labs team, they've got a CTF that's going to help find missing people," the next words out, or the response I usually get is, "Well, what if somebody doesn't want to be found?" And I'm sure you've all heard that too. And my response to that, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that you were giving those details to law enforcement. So you are like no touch at all.
Exactly.
If a person doesn't want to be found, law enforcement can handle that. Is that the right way of handling it?
Yeah, you got it correct there, Micah. So because we only share intelligence we find directly with law enforcement, it's really up to them to follow up on that and decide if that missing person, wants to be found or not. Typically what they'll do is they'll maybe make contact with a person if there's some information that can tell them where they are right now. And, if they're over 18, they can obviously ask if, hey, your family's worried about you. Did you want to let them know where you are? Sometimes maybe they don't. It's really on a per-case basis, but we definitely don't share any of this information with anyone outside of law enforcement, just for that reason alone.
Thanks, Adrian. Kirby?
Okay, so again, I have two more questions. And this question's my question. What is the level of participation? Is it you don't have to give us exact numbers, or I just kind of want to know, it's raising, are you seeing a lot of awareness? What kind of participation are you getting for these CTFs?
So the most recent one we ran, the global one, we had about 200 contestants there. Sometimes we'll run CTFs in conjunction with a conference. Typically we'll get up to 50 people there in person at a conference, but when we run a dedicated missing CTF event for a whole day, we typically get over 100 people attending at those. But we actually broke a record last week with the 200. That's almost double our first event, rewind to 1 year ago, where we had about 100 to 120. So we're definitely growing in that aspect.
Yeah, and our number of events are growing as well, right? So we used to have to go out and talk to conference organizers and say, hey, could we do an event there? And now we're seeing a lot of those people come to us and say, hey, do you want to work with us? Which is fantastic. And Ginsburg. And so we thank you. We did a double header not too long ago. So we did 2 events in one day. That was new for us. Fantastic. Everything worked out well. And so that's the kind of growth that we're starting to see, which is great.
So we get a lot of the B-sides conferences, the DEF CON meetup groups, any OSINT or InfoSec conference really typically are the ones we work with.
Yeah, in terms of the pieces of intelligence that we gather during our missing CTFs as well, we've noticed a growth in that as well, with our most recent goal being over 4,000 pieces of intelligence submitted to our platform. So there's also growth in just, the amount of intelligence that we're starting to gather, and that could be through, the education and training of OSINT, or just making more contestants and individuals aware of OSINT in general. People
it was really nice at layer 8, where the focus was on social engineering and OSINT, and then actually giving people an opportunity to go through and kind of flex that muscle in regards to things either they've been practicing or the talks they've been talking to. I know from B-Sides Kansas City, which I ran, had, it was about 7 teams, I think it was, and we had 5 that were on the board. And then when we ran the Providence, the layer 8 one, we had a full room. We had people coming in and out, and there was probably, I don't remember, I have the number somewhere, but I want to say it was over 15 teams, 10 on the board. So there was definitely opportunity, and it is one of those things where there is a very low barrier entry with a lot of this stuff. I know even during the global CTF, when all the people who were on my team were all first timers, and again, I was a first timer as well, actually participating. I've only just run the events prior. There were a lot of people freaking out about sock puppet accounts and getting all this stuff up and running, and it's just everything's fine. It's just take it a piece at a time. We're here to have fun. We're here to make sure that we can help, and so it is a very lax environment, which is nice.
Yeah, and that's another thing, Ginsberg. Our Slack community alone, we have about 2,500 members. They're all very collaborative. So whenever people pop in, have a question, there's always one community member who can respond to them faster than I or Robert or James can, just because everyone's so willing to help and, teach the skills they know to other people. So now what we've started to see is there's this collaborative effort between the community where they're teaching themselves, and you don't almost need a formal training program because everyone's just collaborating, DMing each other, sharing tools, sharing blogs, teaming up. We saw in a global event we had people looking for team members to join their team that they didn't know. So you could have someone from maybe the US teaming up with someone in the UK, and now you're bringing together these people from around the world to help find missing people. They all have one common goal, and they're all learning together, collaborating. So it's really great to see. We've grown a lot, I'd say, over the past year, reaching like 2,500 members in Slack alone.
Yeah. One of the things that we're looking at doing definitely is streamlining a lot of these processes in the future for our missing CTF events and just OSINT gathering in general. We have a couple of things in the works. Can't talk about too much just yet, but definitely some cool projects that we're going to be pushing through the rest of 2019, 2020 that would hopefully just get lower the barrier to entry to OSINT and just get more people involved. So
cool. Yeah, that's excellent. So I know, Kirby, you have one more question, right?
I'm sorry, Kirby.
No, you're good. One more question. Okay, so from Access OSINT, is there anything special about the maps on your wall, Rob?
Yeah, actually there is. Let me see. So this map here is a topology map of my local area. So when I get a task, I like to kind of know where I'm going, what I need to take with me, and stuff like that. So I like to be really familiar with my area. That's where 90% of our tasks are. So, I want to know, like, do I need my crampons, my ice axe, my climbing gear? Like, what does that look like? So when I get a call, I immediately look at that map just to kind of verify as I'm going out the door. The other map right here is on the west coast of BC, not Haida Gwaii, what's it called now? I forget. It's been so long. I haven't been there in a couple of years, but it's great fishing out in this area. And I love going there. Really big fish. You kind of, taking your boat along the shore, and there'll be a bear like 20 feet from you on the shore, and it's just fantastic. So I used to go there a lot. I haven't gone in a few years, but
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So 2 big questions, getting back to Trace Labs and stuff. Fishing is cool. Trace Labs is cooler.
Who's for fishing?
Ginsberg, man. So two big questions. James, you were talking a little bit about 2019 now. Do you all have other CTFs that you're planning or have already planned for the rest of 2019 that you want to go ahead and tell people about?
So I think the 2 main ones that are coming up are going to be B-Sides Las Vegas and DEF CON 27. So those are the 2 main ones that are coming up in the next 2 weeks. And we have a number of other ones lined up for the rest of 2019 as well, including B-Sides Toronto, Hackfest. Rob, I know there's a couple other B-Sides that we just did in September.
Yeah, St. John's is in October. Yeah. So, yeah.
And Ray says Penn State as well?
Yes, that one was just confirmed. So okay. Ray is actually going to be running point person at Penn State University. We're going to be working with them to do a CTF, I believe, in the middle of September. But we'll officially announce that soon. Yeah.
Very cool. Go ahead, Ginsberg. Nope, you go.
All right. Is there a plan to do another global CTF in this year?
Oh.
So with the global CTF, it's one of those events that we want to kind of how do I say this? We don't want to have too many of them. Sure. So we're trying to figure out the frequency because this is our first year of running the global CTFs. We want to figure out, is it going to be, an annual thing? Is it going to be a quarterly thing? We're still trying to figure out exactly how we're going to handle the global CTFs. Obviously, we've seen a lot of interest with the global CTFs, a lot of success with the global CTFs. We just don't want to oversaturate, the calendar with global CTFs and make it lose its magic. Because I think it's a really special thing when we host the OSINT Global CTF for Trace Labs. It's kind of like the Trace Labs Super Bowl in a way. At least that's how we want to look at it.
Sure.
So Yeah, we don't have a definite plan for the rest of 2019 in regards to the global CTF yet. But if we come up with something, then you'll definitely be some of the first to know.
So you mentioned something just there, James, and I know that our listeners are really interested in this. I'm interested in this too. You mentioned the outcome, the results. Can you all share with us some of the outcomes, successes or negative things that have come out from the CTFs? I mean, do the participants actually find people? Tell us about that.
So I can probably speak to that first. So we've had a number of CTFs we've done past year, about 16 now, if I'm counting them correctly. Some interesting stories. We had at one of our events, someone actually was able to track down a secret Instagram account for one of the missing people that showed them active in a different area of Canada than they went reported missing from, far after missing person dates. So we've seen success there where they've found those accounts. So in that case, we would share that intel with law enforcement, and then it's really up to them to make contact with that person, find out if, hey, can you let your family know you're okay, or do you want to keep that private? That would be like one example.
Do you count that as like a found, as a, yes, we found them now, whether they want to be found, actually in the real sense of the word, that's up to them, but we've located them, so that's a check mark for a trace lab.
Do I get my 5,000 points for that?
So on the trace lab side, we would definitely count that as a 5,000 points. It would be a location. However, there's not really 100% sure way to know that law enforcement didn't already know they were there. So we're able to share that intel with them. If they didn't know about it, they can follow up on it. Sometimes they do know and they just, don't share that the person was found because of privacy reasons and them maybe not wanting to be found. So that's just one example of that. But in Trace Labs line, that would be a confirmed location, yes.
Okay. You got other stories?
Yeah, the other stories probably wouldn't be the most pleasant ones. We've had contestants come across missing people involved in human trafficking related websites. That's another one. It's very unfortunate. As Rob said, it is often some missing people get, put into the human trafficking industry. It's unfortunate, but we've had some contestants where they've found pictures that look to be like that person on those sites. So we've shared that intel as well. Don't always know the outcome of that. That is just another example of some of the intel our contestants find.
Okay. Now, Sector, you're on here, and you and Ginsberg both did the global CTF. Sector, did you have any what was your feedback from that event? I mean, as a participant, what was this event like?
It was actually really difficult. I've talked about that in the Slack and also in the last webcast, because I'm used to regular CTFs. Just finding flags, just getting into a server, or maybe investigate a PCAP and find something. And so it's a set goal. You have a flag, you probably know how to find it, so you get it, and that's that. And here you go, like, well, here's some personal information, go and find flags. So it's a really open question. That's one thing. And the second thing is, I run quite a bit of investigations in my spare time on all kinds of real-life cases. And I document a lot, but I don't see it as a CTF. So I really had to train myself to actually, I found a picture. It's a flag. I have to submit it. So it was like a little barrier that I had to break through, a little wall. And after that, it got easier and easier. And at a certain point, you forget that it's a CTF. But it's a bit of a mindset, I think, that you have to have. And now that I've participated in one, I'm definitely going to be at the next global one. Because, I now know how the game works. And I'm going to prepare even more. Because what I did find, one thing, usually I take like weeks or months for investigations, because the kind that I'm usually working on, they just take time. And these are things, you only got like 8 hours So you got to speed things up. So you really have to prepare everything so you can actually get results really fast. So that was actually an eye-opener for me, that things can be found very fast as long as you have everything prepared and set up and running. So that's a really good point for me to work on too.
Yeah, because you're basically doing OSINT investigations. You're not running a CTF and looking at the PCAPs. You're actually collecting this information. Now when you were talking about that sector, I was thinking about CTFs that I've ever, and one of the things that I've noticed is that people are really happy when they do this. So they participate, and then they write up this blog, and they maybe put information in there about the CTF, the data that they found. Have you all ever found anything out there where people have been like, oh, and I found this picture of this person at that time, and really sharing information with the world when they shouldn't be about your CTF?
That's an interesting question, Micah. I don't think I've ever come across someone publicly sharing exact intelligence they found, which is a good sign that we're not seeing that being shared improperly. One of the rules that we do have is that they submit that to the platform, and they let us handle all communications in regards to law enforcement and such for submitting that intel. We do see a lot of people blog about the events, though. Like Ray, I see you're here on the webcast. I know you put up a blog recently about your experience. That was fantastic. We saw a couple other blogs as well. So I guess we've seen people blogging about the techniques they've used, their experience around the event, but never so much sharing like, hey, I found this exact picture and here's a picture.
Okay.
Yeah, that's always an area of concern for us, right? Yeah. Is the information that we're collecting and how we're going to safeguard that. Yeah. Definitely one of the areas that we think about, and as we evolve, we want to make sure everybody's we're keeping that safe.
Cool. James?
I know. Oh, sorry. So what?
James, were you going to say something? Sorry.
Oh no, I'm in the same boat with Robin, Adrian.
It was the other bearded guy. Go ahead, Ginsberg.
All right, thanks.
Y'all look alike to me. Sorry.
Ooh. I have glasses. I don't know. I know that I had a couple people bend my ear after, and sometimes during the CTF, because there was a realism to it that where we're participating to go through and help, and everything's a very, very positive notion. There were some people that found some stuff or found messages and their last Facebook entries or something like that, and it was almost this humanizing kind of, well, this is the last thing they ever posted. I don't know how to digest that. There was some stuff on there that was like, this is real, and we're trying to go through and help, but also like this is the last time they were interactive in regards to a community, and that took some people not out of it. It kind of actually made them it kind of sharpened them a little bit and made them a little tougher, but it also was just like, you have to know that going in, that this is a sensitive style CTF with real world implications, but at the same time, it's something that you have to compartmentalize yourself and push yourself out of it and try to just do the hunt so that you can help with that. So there were, I haven't seen anybody go through and publish specific data and in a negative way, but I have had people come back to me and say, well, this is really tough. How do you do this? And it's like, it's OSINT.
Yeah, but that is definitely a risk for people, right? As they get into this, it's a non-theoretical event, CTF. So it is real people, real data, and some of it's going to be pretty disturbing. So that's something also that we want to develop and make better for people. So there's a couple people on our Slack channel that are licensed psychologists and different people in that field. And we're hoping to get more support in that area for people. I think as people participate in the CTFs, if they see something that later they're having problems with, we really recommend that they go talk to people, because it really affects different people differently. So, for example, if you're a parent and then one of our subjects is a young child, especially if it looks like your child, that can have definitely a psychological impact there, right? That you want to go talk to people about. So. First responders, generally that can have a big impact on them. I know a lot of paramedics and stuff like that have PTSD. So you're not getting the same dosage as they get, but still, it can definitely make you stay up at night and think about that. So one of the best ways to get through that is to simply sit down with whoever will listen and just talk through what you saw and how you feel, and that generally helps quite a bit.
So just know that if you're listening to this and you went through this and you think I'm the only person that's experiencing this, it's not just you. So if you do have any sort of hangups or anything about things like that, reach out to people, because there are people who will listen and experience this as well. So I think that's as brilliant and as wonderful as I really think this organization is, and I will continue to follow it until it doesn't exist anymore. I do want people to be okay with coming back and saying, hey, this was traumatic as X, whatever, but I don't know that there's a whole lot of talk about that, just because I don't want to scare people, but at the same time, it's something that should be at least addressed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's real world. You don't know where the investigation is going to take you. When you make a real CTF, you work back, you plant the flags in safer places or funny places, and you stay at a kind of a surface level so that people can deal with the tech or the OSINT techniques. But here, you may be going into dark areas. So I love the fact that you work so closely with law enforcement and mental health professionals. That is fabulous. You guys are great.
We still have work to do there. So if you're in the industry and you like what we're doing, please reach out to us, because we want to mature that area more and more so people get more service with that. So
cool. Kirby, you want to unmute yourself?
I'm unmuted. I'm muted. So, all right, I've got 2 questions. First one is, how do you choose the missing people, like specific cases? Does law enforcement just give you the cases? I know you talked about your collaboration with them. Or do you choose them anyway?
So sometimes they do. We've had occasions where they will give us some to put into our system. Quite often we'll spend a considerable amount of time going through and looking. If it's a CTF for a region, we'll look for missing persons from that region. And if we don't find any specific to the city, then we expand the radius until we find people as close to that area as possible. We think that's the most appropriate way to do it for a conference in a city, because that way you're giving back directly to the immediate society there. We think that's pretty cool. We try to get a good mix of people as well for any given CTF, so you have some variety there. Some of them will be older cases, some of them will be newer cases, and then just every kind of variable you can imagine, just to really mix it up a little bit. So, Adrian, James, do you guys have other thoughts here?
Yeah, so just to further add on to what Rob was saying, typically the cases we select, we try to select some that are from no earlier than the past decade. And the reason why is because if you look at 2009, 10 years ago, that was really the rise of social media, smartphone usage, and it really opens up the amount of OSINT that's available for our contestants to find. And we've seen the most success with cases where they've been, 2009 to 2019, just for that reason alone. We have tried to put up cases from prior to that time period before. Don't always see a lot of information come out of that. It is possible, but really what we're striving for is to pick the cases where we have the highest probability of actually finding valuable intelligence for law enforcement. And then another thing we do for selecting the cases is sometimes we'll take in requests from the public. So we now have what we call an op request form on our website where someone can submit a missing persons case there to have us review and see if we can maybe assist with that. I do want to say, though, that we do get a number of submissions there. If last time I checked, we've had 100 submissions to date. We are somewhat limited in the number of cases we can select for each event. Typically, we choose around 8 to 10 just so that people can focus on those, and we have the highest success rate there. Sometimes we'll do, up to 12 if it's a bigger event. So typically, we can tackle that many cases at one time per event, I'd say.
Okay. And the other question, you have some event coming up in September. Can you tell us about it?
Which one? The Penn State University?
B-Sides.
B-Sides. Rob, I think that was the St. John's.
Oh, so we've got St. John's definitely in September. And then, Adrian, we have another one which starts with C. and I'm going to let you
I
pronounce
think
it.
that's the one somebody wants
That's
to
the one somebody's asking about, isn't it? And there's an inside joke there. So
I'm gonna take a whack at it. Besides Chimru, like
Kumri.
Kumri.
I knew I'd say it wrong, but
I totally I was corrected recently and I forgot. Thank you for that.
Yeah, tell us about these B-sides events that are coming up.
So St. John's, we did that one last year. It was really successful. There's a really strong information security and particularly OSINT community there. It's it's on the other side of Canada as well, which makes it really special for me because it's going from West Coast to East Coast and working with them over there. The time zones are different, but it was really fun last year. So I'm really looking forward to it this year as well. Really well organized, great event. So it should be fantastic.
Cool. All right. So let's see. So one of the things that we always like to ask our guests is, what is your personal thing? Take the Trace Labs out of it. We get that you all like helping people and all, but within the field of OSINT, can James, Adrian, and Robert, in that order, tell us what's something that you really love doing within OSINT, like a technique or a tool or something like that?
I think for me, I was first introduced to OSINT a few years back with my work in the public sector, and it kind of just caught my attention ever since. For me, it's more the idea that something that others would consider this is just cyber stalking. It's like, oh wait, there's an actual term for it, OSINT, and this can actually be used for work, or it could be used in certain use cases. And I found that use case in Trace Labs for missing persons. To be honest with you, before that, it was mainly just a work thing for me. I would use it when it came up in work and when I had to use it for my professional life. And then through Trace Labs, I was introduced to the community aspect of it and just all these different wonderful tools that our community is using to facilitate these events and all of that. So I think for me, it was that's kind of where it came from, and that's where I'm at today with it. I'm trying to think of like where I would use OSINT outside of Trace Labs, and if anything, it would just be in my professional life. And anything that's not my professional life is pretty much taken up by Trace Labs. That's where all my free time goes these days. So,
Adrian, what's your favorite thing to do in OSINT?
So I have a similar story to James. So my professional background is in threat intelligence. So I worked in financial services, technology space, and I would use OSINT in that aspect to kind of track cyber criminals and their activities. So when I first heard about Trace Labs, I'm like, oh, using OSINT to help find missing people, I'd never thought of that. So really what I like the most about OSINT is connecting the dots. I don't like to just go from point A to point B. I like to go from point A to maybe point F or something like that. Kind of go from one pivot to another and take that initial pivot point and kind of further find some new intelligence there. So that's something I really like to do. So using tools like Maltego, any tools where you can input an email address and then find out info from there, get a social media profile, connect the dots from there. That's really where my interest is in the OSINT space, I would say.
All right, cool. Rob?
Yeah, similar to Adrian and James, I think the more I do it, I'm becoming a bit of a freak because now I want to do it on everything, right? And so when I meet new people, I start a file, right? It's like, okay, so, I just start learning about the person online. It's like, okay, now I can, talk to you easier because I know what your pets' names are. So it's a bit weird that way, but
so Rob, would you say that Rob, would you say that you're becoming more of a creep?
Yeah, a little bit.
So Rob,
that's Rob's handle.
What's my dog's name, Rob?
Yeah. Are we allowed to say that on the podcast?
No, probably not. No.
Yeah, I don't think that's in the file yet. I have to.
Yeah. We can give away phone numbers, but not dog names.
Yeah.
No, the dog is innocent. Okay.
It's just so addicting, right? I find, and so I love doing it. I like that kind of layered approach where you get a little bit of information, and it's like, okay, so what can I do with this? And then it kind of snowballs, and you get a little bit more, and a little bit more, and then you're able to go off on these different tangents. And I just find it's really addictive. So.
Yep. You and us both. Yeah.
We love it too. We're kind of getting to the end of our interview here. Do you have anything else that you want to talk about, or any thing you want to go ahead and promote that you already haven't mentioned? Start with Rob. And
Sure. Yeah. Rob? Great. I'm always kind of hesitant I don't want to interrupt people. But yeah, so I think just to start off with, I want to thank everybody who, for the podcast. Thank you very much. Also to all the people that are in our Slack channel and that are participated in our events. It was an idea, and then we had this team come together, and it's growing. But it's really the success of everything we're doing is due to the people that are involved, and so I can't say thanks enough, because it's been really special journey, meeting a lot of great people, fantastic people. The team at Trace Labs, I've never been in a team quite like it, where we can disagree on stuff, we can talk through stuff and collaborate very quickly in real time, pretty much every day, and just a really rewarding experience. And so thank you everybody very, very much. That's probably my main message today. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Sure.
Adrian, last words?
Yeah, I would say, I know James mentioned earlier, we have a couple upcoming events besides LV and DEF CON 27. So Rob, James, and I will actually be there in person on the Tuesday of besides LV and on the Saturday of DEF CON 27. So if anyone listening is going to be there in person, drop by our contest area, say hi, come chat about OSINT. Another thing we were looking to do is a Trace Labs meetup in Vegas. I believe on the Friday night we should be announcing that soon. So hopefully if there's any Trace Labs members there in Vegas, we can all meet up, have a beer, actually put a face to the Slack handle. So yeah, that's what I would say. If you're interested in that, check out our Eventbrite. I'm sure we'll post up some links in the podcast after, Micah.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, send whatever you want, and we'll post it in the show notes. So one of the things that I've always loved is going to cons and meeting these people that I've only known, via Twitter and places. MW OSINT. We were very lucky with the webcast that we can have like Matthias on, and we can have you guys on, and I could put faces with your names. But like Ray and other people, I just know from their nicknames and what they do online. So having that meetup and putting a face with the person and go, wow, you're creepy. That's I'm not going to talk to you anymore, Rob. I mean, that's helpful, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're locked in a room with 8 hours with them running this thing. And I'm just kidding. Everyone who I've been interacting with has been awesome from the community. Really dedicated to learning kind of what's going on, what's next, how to do it better, and things like that. So yeah, it's awesome.
James, last words?
I was just going to say I would love to meet anyone and everyone at DEF CON this year. So I'm really looking forward to that, just kind of putting faces to names in the community. As I did mention before, some of you guys may not know this, but we've actually built, we worked with an organization called Sagard to build the first ever dedicated OSINT CTF platform. So the CTF platform that powers our OSINT CTFs is completely built from the ground up specifically for this OSINT use case for missing persons. And that's just one of many different cool projects that we have on the horizon, with Trace Labs that we're going to look into pushing forward and building with our community. So, definitely if you're interested, join our Slack community, join our group. We're always looking for interested volunteers that want to get more involved with Trace Labs, that have, development skills, technical skills, that want to get more involved on that aspect of things. Because there are a couple of cool projects that we're looking to start and that we're currently in the middle of right now. And we can always use the extra volunteer help, get some great experience, and get involved with the community if you're interested. But yeah, other than that, I just wanted to thank the community that we already have working with us and all the interest, and for inviting us onto your podcast today. It's been great, and just thank you.
Cool. Well, it's been great having you on. Before we say goodbye to everybody, we've got two quick announcements. One, Kirby, you want to tell everybody about what you did?
Yeah, so we put in a pitch for South by Southwest. So next year in Austin, we're hoping to be able to do a live webcast where we'll get to actually meet some people and have a live audience. But that's going to really depend on our audience. So if anyone's out there interested in helping us out with that, in early August, we'll have a link for you to vote for us to try and get us onto that stage.
Cool. And that will be very exciting. And then lastly, we would like to thank our current sponsors, and for those people out there that have pitched in via our Patreon. On our webpage, we have a Patreon so that we can help defer the costs of some of the things for our webcasts and our other platforms. Thank you to everybody that has contributed already, and the link is on our website. With that said, I'd like to again thank all the James, Rob, and Adrian for joining us from Trace Labs. Look at their website, tracelabs.org, for more information, and stay OSINT Curious, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, Micah and team.
Okay.
Bye.